Prophecology. It's more than a philosophy, more than a psychology, more than just an ecology, bigger than biology, larger than anthropology, brushes against astrology. That's prophecology.
Praise the Lord. This is Master Prophet Bernard Jordan, your most trusted name in prophecy. I'm excited today. We have a special guest that is here with us today that is going to be sharing with us. And Minister Jonathan, this is going to be a very interesting guest that we have. We have Brother David Cook.
Yes, we do. Mr. David Cooks.
And so David Cooks, a TC paraplegic, is a keynote speaker, business coach, author, and award-winning book. I got his book here, Getting Undressed, From Paralysis to Purpose. In his book, David encourages the reader to keep moving forward regardless of life challenges and to put purpose into action through helping others. Continue on, Jonathan.
As a speaker, David has shared the stage with Elizabeth Smart, Jordan Montgomery, Ron White, and many others, providing inspiration and insights with audiences throughout the United States. David's basketball coaching career is distinguished. Highlights of his coaching career include serving under Coach Michael Karaikowicz at Duke University, representing the United States in Estonia and Finland with coaches Frank Martin and Guy Rancourt, and serving as the head coach at Marquette University High School. Most recently, David has served as an assistant coach at Concordia University in Mequon, Wisconsin. After leaving the corporate world, David spent nearly 25 years in education, including 17 years at his alma mater, Marquette University High School, teaching economics and serving as the diversity director. David earned a Bachelor's of Business Administration in Finance from the University of Wisconsin, Whitewater, and an MBA in Finance from Duke University. David's story is compelling. His outlook on life and his insights are practical and life-changing, says Joe Sweeney of the New York Times, a New York Times best-selling author. Getting Undressed is inspiring and proof that you can win in life regardless of the circumstances. Michael Karaikowicz, head coach men's basketball, Duke University. David's book, Getting Undressed, From Paralysis to Purpose, is available on his website at davidcooksspeaks.com and on Amazon. David and his wife, Mary Pat, reside in Wisconsin.
All right. God bless you, David, and how are you doing?
Man, I am doing great. I'm excited to be here and looking forward to our conversation today.
And I am looking forward to being here with you in this conversation as well. So listen, I got your book, and I was deeply moved. I know when we spoke on the phone, that was before even though you had a book prophesied to you and spoke the word of the Lord into your life, and then you sent me your book. And I have piles of books. As you know, I'm working on my doctoral degree, and I have piles of stuff that I'm reading. So I had your book. When I sat down and started reading it, I couldn't put it down, and I was amazed at your story. So Getting Undressed, From Paralysis to Purpose, how did it all begin? Because, I mean, you were a person that was active in sports. At what age did you get involved in sports?
I think I must have been 5 or 6 years old. As long as I can remember, I was getting involved and played basketball, like a lot of city kids, and that's what I really enjoyed doing. And as long as I can remember doing it, that's what I did.
Wow. And so you had a tragic moment that was like a divine interruption in your life. Tell us more about that moment that happened in your life.
Yeah, well, I was 15 years old, and I was a sophomore at Marquette High School here in Milwaukee. And I woke up that morning with a little back pain and didn't think much of it. I had just gotten a clean bill of health from my doctor about a week before, and basketball tryouts were 3 days later. I didn't make it my freshman year, so I put everything I had into making myself ready for this. And as the day went on, my condition didn't necessarily worsen, but did get better. And back then they used to tell you to lay down, and you'll feel better when you get up.
Mm.
Well, I didn't feel better when I got up. And I called my parents in the room. I almost collapsed when I got out of bed. And I called them, and we had already prayed and everything. And we went over to the hospital. And a few hours later, I was diagnosed that I had had a blood vessel erupt on my spinal. I had a spinal aneurysm, and I was 15 years old.
Okay, hold on. I mean, I had a brain aneurysm. You can have spinal aneurysms.
Yes, and your response is the same response that even I get when I speak with physicians today. They're like, it's a very, 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 very rare thing. Most people haven't heard of it, and I don't know anybody else who's had it other than me. And it really was. I call it a life-changing event. It didn't change my life. Other things changed my life, but this was a life-changing event, and I went from walking and literally within a 24-hour period, without notice or accident, I ended up being a wheelchair user.
Wow. So this is like overnight, you're active, playing basketball, doing whatever a 15-year-old can do. You're in a Bible-believing family, because I heard you say you was praying and your family were believers. You were evidently active in church?
Oh, absolutely. I had given my life to Christ when I was 13 years old. And you may remember this. There was this movie called The Burning Hell.
Yeah.
And I remember they played it at the little storefront church we were attending. And I didn't know much about what it meant to be saved, other than I had seen my dad's life, my mom's life transformed by the power of God. I wanted to serve that God. And I also did. And so I gave my life to Christ when I was 13 years old. So being a believer and understanding what that meant, at least to the degree as a teenager, I did. And I was committed. And yes, this happened. And this was not the abundant life that I had thought I signed up for based on the word of God, what I knew.
Wow, amen. Jonathan, what would you like to say to David?
Wow. This is an amazing, amazing story, just listening. Let me ask you, what kind of faith building took place for you as a teenager for you to, because I was reading your biography, and you've gone to college, you've gone to get your MBA. How did you develop that kind of faith at such a young age?
Well, I have to attribute that to my mom and dad. My mom grew up in rural Mississippi, and my dad in Atlanta, Georgia, and they fled the South with $50 and a bus ticket, like many of our families did. And when they got here, they met. My dad was a math tutor and met my mom in college, and they got married. And they instilled in us so many things as children. There were expectations and standards in our house that we were going to meet, that you were going to do something with your life. And whether it didn't mean that you had to go to college, but whatever you were going to do, it was going to be done in excellence, and it was going to be, you were going to be the best at it that you could be. That was instilled in us very early on. The idea that in spite of injustice, you can achieve, and the best way to beat injustice is to be successful. These were things that we were taught, and it changed our narrative and our mindset just about everything. So when this happened to me at age 15, I didn't know any better because of what was instilled in me. And I had seen the power of God move. I had seen him heal the sick. I had seen cancer healed. I'd seen people get out of wheelchairs, all of that through my dad. And so I didn't know anything other than to expect for things are going to be all right and that God's got me. And this was going to work out for my good. And I will say this, at age 15, and I still believe it today, at any moment I will be resurrected. And I had not lost that thought. Some people, the psychiatrists and the doctors, thought I was crazy because I never got depressed or got discouraged while I was in rehab. I had tough days, but I knew I was going to be all right. And because of that, I think that helped me just to keep moving. And the other thing, my folks made it real clear. I needed to get off their tax dollars as soon as I possibly could. And that didn't change, to their credit. That didn't change when life changed my situation. They said, look, you still need to be successful. You still need to get your own place, do your own thing. We'll help you, but we're raising you so that you can live independently of us. And
Yes.
that's how I think I got there.
Wow, and wow, that's amazing. Now, I would like to say this, David. You shared the story about the first day going back to school. You were home for about a year or so?
I was home for 2 months.
Oh, for two. So this happened like over like the summer, because look, did you go
Yeah.
back to school on the first day of school?
Yes. So what happened? I'm sorry. So it was October 19th, 1979, when I experienced a spinal aneurysm. And I went home from rehab on Christmas Eve of that year. Even though the doctor said it would take me 6 months, it took me 2. School started back in January after Christmas.
Oh, it was
That's
the January. Okay.
Yes, that's when I went back to school.
Oh my goodness. So okay. So I was thinking when I was reading the book, I s- I okay, when I started back to school, it was September. So you started back right after right there in the winter break, right after
Absolutely. Right,
Christmas
right
break.
back. Right back. And I'm going to tell you, the doctors told me I'd be in rehab for at least 6 months. Well, God didn't see that. So 2 months was all it took.
So
And
you
it was
talk,
right.
so you talked about going to school. You felt every bump on the way to school.
Yes. Oh
You
my
could
God.
tell us what that ride was like, because I mean, I'm sure it was a physical ride. It was also a psychological ride. It was an emotional ride because you were facing a lot of unknown factors.
Yeah, I remember when the guy came to pick me up, and it was called Care Cab, but it wasn't a cab. It was an old beat up station wagon. And the driver of this station wagon, he wasn't the most attractive person physically or from an odor standpoint. And so I remember being in this and getting in this car, and it seemed like the longest ride to school because I had never gone this route before. I was nervous. I didn't know what to expect when I got back there. Back then, things weren't as accessible as they are now. So when I get to school, I have to go through a back alleyway where they kept all the snow blowers and those types of things. I didn't know what the classroom was going to be like. I didn't know how I was going to get to a bathroom. All of those things went through my mind because I didn't know what that was going to be like now. I was the only person in a wheelchair in my school. And we had one of those old elevators, I call them the kind, remember you watch those old black and white movies and you had to open a gate and then you had to close a gate,
Yeah.
close a gate, and that's what we had to use. And so all of those things were new to me and I didn't know what was going to happen. And I tell you what, I am so grateful that God had people there for me. Some guys that were my friends that still are my friends to this day that helped me get through and made sure I got where I needed to. And my situation didn't matter to them. That's what was so amazing to me. It was as though I was just David to those guys. And they helped me to really adjust to what I had to deal with. And for that, I'm truly grateful.
Wow. You begin to talk about paralysis can take on many forms. What do you mean by that? Paralysis taking on many forms.
I think that paralysis is anything that keeps you from functioning fully to the extent that you were made to function. And that can be psychological, that can be financial, that can be in a relationship. Clearly, that can be physical. And I think that the key is not to stay at that place and to figure out how to get past that paralysis or that moment of paralysis. COVID-19 has paralyzed many people and has
Yes.
left us all less. It's taken away some of our ability to do things, but that doesn't mean that there aren't other things that we can do. You see, I guess paralysis and adversity, it does not redefine your purpose. It redirects you on the route you have to take. And
Mm.
that's the message, is that your goal doesn't change, your purpose doesn't change, but perhaps the way you get there is going to have to change. And that's what I mean about paralysis of is that it should not, it's going to prevent you from having some mobility, but you don't have to stay there. You don't have to stay in that place.
Mm-hmm. How, on the first day of school, I mean, back to school after the situation that took place, what was it like with your classmates, teammates, showing back up at the first day of school, the interaction with the teachers? What was that like coming that first day, that first week, up until like the first month of school?
Man, let me tell you, that was remarkable. My classmates, I remember literally that first day, every class that I went into, they gave me a standing ovation.
Wow.
And I'm telling you, I get emotional thinking about it now, because that really let me know that they valued me as a classmate. And that was remarkable. My teachers were amazing. They didn't put up with any of my stuff. I was 15, I was slick, okay? Let me just tell you. And when I came back, I tried to be slick. I probably shouldn't say this, but we used to try to make the elevator not work so I could miss a class here and there. And but they caught on to that really quick. And they held me to the standard. They treated me like everybody else. My classmates did that. From a basketball standpoint, I would go to games and the coaches would talk about me at halftime and have people come and see how I was doing and all of that. And so when I got back to school, they gave me just what I needed. And what I needed was a little extra love and a little bit of extra support to let me know that I was okay and that they were okay with me. Now, I will say this. They didn't know exactly what to do for me because it was new for them too. And so I had to kind of educate them on where I was and what I needed. But I allowed for them to grow into that and evolve into that because they were paralyzed in their own way when I came back because they didn't know what to do. Do they hold the door? Do they push me? Do they take my book bag? They didn't know what to do. But I let them be in that space and allow for them to grow as I grew. And I tell you what, it was a great, not first month, the great last 2.5 years of high school.
Wow. So going to college, was it challenging picking a college to go to, and what helped you make that choice?
It wasn't challenging for me. It's probably more challenging for my parents than it was for me. I had a lot of options and had done well in high school. And I wanted to I was like any other 18-year-old. I wanted to get out of the house. I wanted to get away from my parents, how that goes. And I remember even getting kicked out once when I was 17 years old, but that's another story.
David, what could you do to even get kicked out of a house? Jonathan, do you believe that David could do anything to get kicked out of?
I don't know. What could you have even thought about? What were you eating too much or something? Because I don't think that you could really do anything.
I began to ask where the money was going.
What?
Yes. Oh. And so we were getting some assistance, and so those checks would come in my name, and my parents would take them and pay bills and do the things with them. And at some point, I don't know what I was thinking. And I began to inquire about the finances and where they were flowing. And I remember this too, like yesterday. My dad opened the door and had my mom hold the one outside because there were 3 steps to get in and out the house. My dad put me in a wheelie, and he gently bounced me down the 3 stairs, put me outside, closed the door, turned off the lights, and locked the door. And I'm sitting there, now, no cell phones or anything. And I'm like, man, where am I going to go? And it really dawned on me, I think I need to apologize like really fast because I had no. So I'm sitting outside the house, and they're like, can we help you? I'm like, seriously? Seriously? They're going to do that? And eventually I figured out what was going on. I apologize. And they never have had another ounce of trouble out of me ever after that. So that's how I got put up in the house.
Wow. That was a learn. And so what was the lesson you learned from that, David?
Was that to trust that my parents were doing what they were doing and looking out for my best interest, and that it wasn't my place to be asking them for where the money was going that was in my name but didn't belong to me, because I still wasn't paying no rent, and I still wasn't paying the bill. So I learned real quick not to ever do that again, ever.
Wow.
Wow.
Do you think that after you became an adult, you had a greater appreciation for your parents and the wisdom that you are now?
Yes. Oh, and let me tell you, it didn't take long. It took, when I got to college, I understood the wisdom of my parents. It was clear because I had a sense of balance and understanding about what was right and what was wrong, where to go, where not to go, that a lot of other students didn't have. And I began to see that when I was, 18, 19 years old. And then as I became a man and became older, the wisdom that they've given me, I was able to use in the marketplace and otherwise. And just that biblical base and foundation was important, but also just how to treat people, how to get along with people, how to interact, how to negotiate. All those things are really important. And yes, I think that my parents were the best parents in the entire world. And they have conditioned, taught us, they exposed us to so many things. I tell people, I can have lobster and collard greens on the same plate, and it's because of them. I've been to the opera. I've been to revivals. I've been to the theater. All those things that I didn't like doing. I'm like, why we got to go here? Why we got to be with those people? Why we got to do that? I am so glad. So glad.
Wow. So when you went to college, and you want to ask him something, Jonathan?
I just was wondering, what about your parents have you picked up and taken on in your life? Because you have some funny parents.
Well, I really think my dad passed a few years ago, and my mom is still living, and I think I've taken on my mom's humor and my dad's no nonsense. My dad was like he was great. I mean, he was saved for real. He was, as Larry Reed said, he was paper Bible saved. He was known for praying for people in the middle of the street and stuff as God did it. I mean, that's what he did, and he was unapologetic. But he was a no nonsense man. You didn't have to guess about who he was. What you see is what you get. And I think some of those things I do now. And when I was coaching basketball, high school basketball, I found myself repeating some of those same phrases that my dad would say, like, you'll pass out before you die. Just keep working. Stuff like that. And you're going to be all right. This is hurting me more than it's hurting you. All that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So it's amazing. The older I get, the more I'm like, man, did I just say that? I think my dad used to say that. And so you find those things coming out.
Wow. When you got to college, you still hung around basketball?
Yeah. When I got to college, one of the first things I did was I hung around basketball, but it wasn't walking basketball. It was wheelchair basketball, which was something I had never been exposed to before. I didn't know anything about that. And again, I didn't know anything about people with wheelchairs and all that. And to be honest with you, when I got to college, one of my biggest adjustments was interacting with people who were in wheelchairs. I was kind of like prejudiced against people in wheelchairs. I mean, it's the craziest thing. I would stare at them and I'm like, I wonder what they can do. And I wonder, because they all had different levels of ability, but I found myself doing the same thing that people did to me whenever I would go somewhere. They would stare at you and look at you and not sure what you do. And I had to really grow and overcome that and understand that they were people. These were my teammates with different abilities, different circumstances. But at the end of the day, I was a point guard, and I needed them to catch that ball and put that thing in the basket so we could have a chance to win. And so I had to really, that's when I started learning about leadership, teamwork, and the importance of properly analyzing a person's ability and putting them in positions to be successful. And I knew there were guys on my team that I had to be careful how I passed the ball to them because their hands weren't as good as somebody else's, and those types of things. And so that was one of the transitions. I was no longer playing walking basketball, but the love I had for the game still was there. Now I played wheelchair basketball. And then eventually that led to coaching. So I literally lived that reroute, that GPS reroute. You know
Uh-huh.
how the GPS tells you there's an accident ahead, it's going to take you around another way. Well, I had a GPS somewhere inside of me that was saying, we're going to get you to the basketball world, but you got to go this way.
Wow. So basketball taught you team skills, taught you how to work with teams.
Yes, it taught me how to work with teams. It taught me about coaching. It taught me about how to take direction, about discipline, what it takes to win, about standards, no excuses. All of those things were part of basketball, and the biggest thing is about relationships. I love being with people. That's probably how I'm wired. But that basketball thing, the most important thing was those are my teammates. Those are my guys. Those are guys I was going to war with. And if I didn't trust them, we had a problem because you got to trust people you're going to war with. And that's what we learned in that locker room. That's what we learned through defeat. That's what we learned through victories. All those things were part of that basketball experience.
When you got ready to go for your MBA, you went to Duke University, is that correct?
That's right.
What made you go for an MBA, your master's?
Yeah, well, it was just one of my personal goals. Once I finished my undergraduate degree and I was a banker in Milwaukee, a commercial lender, and I had a goal of after 5 years, I knew that would be long enough to be promoted and to have a title that I wanted to go get an MBA. And it was just one of my personal goals that I had set for myself. And so when that 5 year period came, I was an officer of the bank, and I had decided to leave and go and pursue this MBA. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do with it. I had ideas and plans, but it was one of the things I decided to do. And Duke University was, I had some great options. I had, Carolina and Duke. And I never got in Stanford. I wanted to go to Stanford as an undergrad. I got rejected, and as a graduate student, um, whatever. But Duke
Hmm.
worked out great for me, and I was happy to do that.
Wow. And so what did you do after you got your MBA?
Once I finished my MBA, I moved to the Northeast. I actually worked for a large financial firm in Connecticut that was headquartered in Connecticut. And I did that for a few years. I was actually underwriting aircraft leasing and power plant deals. And so I did that for a few years, and I found myself still engaged in basketball, having coached at Duke a little bit. And while I was working for this financial company, I was a head coach at a town in the Northeast. And so I'd work, go to basketball practice, come back and go to work, and did what I had to do. And eventually I just found myself sitting at work designing basketball plays. And I said,
Wow.
I can't do that. Something's not right here. And I opted to leave corporate America at that point, knowing that I had this thing inside of me to work with young people and to coach the game. And so I left, took a 70% pay cut, lived on a university campus in a one-bedroom place for a few years, and began to really find out what my purpose really was.
Wow. So what is it that you do now, David?
Well, now I am an author and I am a public speaker, and I also do some business coaching. But my primary job is a public speaker, which obviously during this time has become virtual, and we're all pivoting and positioning, as you say, to
Yes.
figure out how to continue to leverage that in the marketplace.
Wow. Well, this is great. And if people would like to get your book, you wrote this. This book came out when?
This book came out in August 6th on my birthday, August 6th of 2018.
Wow. And we want you to get the book, Getting Undressed from Paralysis to Purpose by David Cooks with an S. Hey, man, you will be blessed by the book. It's very moving. What would you like to say to people that are listening today?
What I would like to tell them is that as difficult as life is, your ability to endure is always greater than your willingness to endure. And let me tell you what I mean. None of us want to face difficult things in life, and we don't volunteer. But what happens is once you are faced with something, God has given us this will that your ability to deal with that is greater than you ever thought. And I want people to understand that in these difficult times, there's a lot going on, but your ability is always greater than your willingness. I tell people, like, it sounds like God says that he will do exceeding abundantly what we can ask or think.
Yes.
That's like ability beyond what we can think.
Mm-hmm.
So just don't give up. I want people to hold on and believe that God is in control and that he can take what was meant for evil, for real he can, and turn it out for good. And you can have a blessed life. Most importantly, that blessed life you have impact the lives of other people. Because I believe purpose without service is not purpose at all.
Purpose without service is what?
Not purpose at all.
Is not purpose at all. All right. If people want to bless you with the Cash App or Zelle, how do they get money to you?
My Cash App is $DCE Speaks. And that would probably be the easiest way to get to it, to get to me.
That is D as in David?
Yes.
C,
DCE Speaks.
D as in David, C as in Cook?
Yes.
And then the next letter?
E as in effervescent.
Uh-huh.
Speaks, S as in Sam. P as in personal.
Mm-hmm.
E as in extra. A as in apple. K as in conniption. I don't know what K is.
Kite.
Kite, yes. And S as in sweet.
Okay, $ David Cook, exquisite, speaks,
Yep.
with an S. All
Absolutely.
right. We're going to encourage the people to send something to you and be a blessing to your life. Thank you for sharing your life. How did you first hear about us here at the prophetic ministry here?
I first heard about you through Larry Reed Live.
Wow.
I was on bed rest earlier about a year ago for about 120 days. I thought I had the flu, and it turned out I had sepsis. And so I was on strict bed rest during that time. And I was just going through YouTube, and I came across this guy named Larry Reed, and he was kind of funny to me. And I started watching him, and then you came on, and it reacquainted me back in the 90s. When I remember seeing you on BET, and I've been a follower of both of you ever since, and it really made an impact in my life because I was in a difficult place at the time, and it really encouraged me, and it let me know that the prophetic was real and that God's got a great plan for my life, and sometimes we all need those reinforcements, so I appreciate that.
Amen. God bless you, and we appreciate you, and I'm sure it won't be the last time we'll be hearing from you. Amen. We got to hear you come here and speak here on our platform. How have you been enjoying Verbella?
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. I try to watch as much as I can, and I think it's obviously it's the future of where we're going, and I enjoy it, and I try to make sure I sit in the right seat now because I didn't know where I was supposed to sit before, and so I do that, and I think it's worth being a part of. It's different, and so many of the things that you talk about are just not the traditional religious things,
Mm-hmm.
but it really broadens how you think and how I don't like to read or write, but now I'm reading more as a result of listening and watching and trying to learn so many things. So I love it, and I would encourage anyone who's listening to make the commitment and the investment in your own life to be a part of it.
All right. Well, God bless you. Let's give David Cooks a hand, and we thank you for being here with us. God bless you.
To keep in touch with Master Prophet E. Bernard Jordan, go to www.bishopjordan.com and follow him on all social media platforms. To get more information about the Prophecology Conference and or more special events, go to www.zoeministries.com or call 888-831-0434. Thank you and stay blessed.